Hi, this is Dr. Nadine Rosechild-Sullivan, and I'm reading to you today from a selection from my book, I Trusted You, Fully and Honestly Speaking of Gendered Assaults. I'm going to read one poem and one narrative, and the poem, which begins on page 13, is entitled, I Trusted You. I trusted you. Trusted life, walked free with the breeze, combing my hair, head erect, shoulders square, facing future. I was a warrior inside, vast, enormous, capable, the source of spring, ruler of the galaxy, wild, strong, and full of dreams. Through me, morning glories turned their faces to the sun. Through me, flowers bore their fruit. Through me, ice crystals formed on the skin of virgin snow. And God heard me on high. I was strong, compact, vigorous, alive. My body my own, free of vulnerable parts, muscles powerful. Victor in every contest, I bested each brother time and again. Won, brought them down, received their cries of uncle, magnanimous, let them go, showed compassion. I studied tadpoles, collected snakes, scaled trees, ate dirt, even worms, chased you with the large and hairy bug. Studied dinosaurs, knew the names of clouds brisking my blue and open terrain, noted trade winds, sleuthed mysteries, created secret codes, played spy, ran the woods, waded streams, unearthed fossils. I was large and the world revolved around me. I was pretty. Dresses of taffeta and lace graced my form, ribboned pumps, and tiny purses made of real patent leather. I wore lace, reveled in the feel of my hair curling round my face. Life lay before me open, a realm of possibilities oozing promise. But then you came, and in a moment, put out the sun, muted the song of birds, took the warmth from the air. I trusted you. I didn't know you. I trusted everyone, trusted life, and so I went with you off alone, no reason to suspect, no forewarning, no knowledge of evil, and innocent, and with your hand, and with your mouth, and with your misplaced lust, you took that which should have been, and all that had always been, and never gave it back. Beginning on page 7, My Best Friend's Uncle, a memoir. I was 12 years old. My mind was 12 years old. My body would have passed for 18, but I was not 18. I was 12. I had gone with my best friend Regina to her extended family's celebration of the Easter holiday. We were all Catholic. I was Austro-Hungarian and Irish, she was German and Italian, but what happened that day happened in all religions and ethnicities. It happened then. It happens now. I was a baby boomer. I was growing up in a post-World War II US suburb north of Philadelphia, and I had a very protected childhood. It was unhappy in its own way. I was often quite lonely, but pre-pubescence, I was indubitably protected. I had lived my 12 years in a very asexual space. No one mentioned sex. No one had ever touched me inappropriately or even insinuated that such a thing was possible. In my own family, the 12-year-old me had more than a decade's evidence that my father respected my mother, my grandfather respected my grandmother, and my great-grandfather respected my great-grandmother. I grew up in a family where never was heard a discouraging or sexually explicit word. I had needled and begged until I had gotten permission to go with my best friend to her family's Easter celebration. The food was fabulous. I was having a great time. We were just in an age when music and dancing was beginning to seem important. The high school we would be attending in a year or two had a weekly dance, and we were seriously working to learn to perform the fast steps and the steps of the line dances we watched on Dick Clark's American Bandstand. Another friend's older sister had taught me how to find the rhythm in a song the year before. We spent hours listening to our local pop radio stations, WIBG and WFIL. Regularly cutting the carpet in Regina's family room was, to us, serious business. Regina suggested we go downstairs to the finished basement in the home where the family party was being held and turn on the radio and dance. I was amenable, as were a stream of younger children who happily followed us down the stairs. A few minutes later, we were also followed by one of Regina's many uncles. At one end of the room, there was a set of drums. Uncle Tony took a seat and began to keep time to the music. Thinking nothing of it, Regina and I continued to dance. A few songs later, a slower song came on the radio. Suddenly, there was an arm on my elbow. Uncle Tony had left the drums. He pivoted me around and began to slow dance. I don't remember whether or not I fell into step, but within seconds he planted his right hand on my left breast and his mouth on mine. I froze. They say there are 3 response mechanisms to danger or assault: flight, or fight, or freeze, playing dead. They say it is the primitive brain that responds immediately at a level beneath conscious choice. He intended the element of surprise. And in the unexpectedness of the moment, in my utter confusion about what was going on, my brainstem, inadvertently, without my forethought or cognition, responded by freezing, and I became rigid like a statue. With time on pause, I remember puzzling, what is he doing? I became aware of the slime of his tongue, that it was extended beyond his lips, and in response, clenched my mouth tightly closed. I had never even heard of French kissing, and I remember wondering, why is he licking my lips? I was literally so actually innocent that I had no conceptual idea of either his actions or the fact that someone so much older than me, who knew I was a child, could be directing those actions toward me. In the very definition of the term, I was blindsided. You cannot see what you cannot believe. And I could not have foreseen this, that I could never have imagined. Intellectually, I'm sure the entire event lasted only seconds. In memory, however, it is as frozen still as I was then, and it stretches out as a span between innocence and devastation. I'm sure it only took moments for Regina's little brother, Frankie, to begin to sing song, Uncle Tony's kissing Diane, Uncle Tony's kissing Diane, in the lilting tones of the 7-year-old. Regina's Uncle Tony let go. He turned on his heel and sped up the steps. Regina demanded, did he touch you? I shook my head, no. Maybe I said it too. We went upstairs. As was common for preteen girlfriends, we went into the bathroom together. I started to sob. Regina exclaimed, he did touch you, threw open the door and went in search of her father. Regina's father went in search of the offender, who had already hurriedly gathered up his pregnant wife and 2-year-old and fled. Regina's father was apologetic. It was his brother. We left the party. Regina's mother was wonderful. She told me it was not my fault. She told me how wrong he was and how they would make sure he was not allowed at family gatherings in the future. They drove me home. Once home, I ran to the bathroom and began to scrub my mouth with a comic cleanser I found under the sink, hoping the chlorine bleach in it would take away the dirty feeling, kill the germs. I kept scrubbing my lips, but the feeling didn't lessen. I crawled into bed under the covers, way under the covers. When I woke the next morning, for just a second, I felt fine, but then the memory, and with it the confusion and an overpowering sweep of dirtiness, flooded back in. And I was overwhelmed with nausea and the desperate desire to simply go back to sleep, where I could escape both feeling and memory. I pulled the covers back over my head. Through my window from the backyard, I heard the sound of a basketball dribbling on the asphalt court my father had installed, and knew that it meant that my brother's friend, Jesse, was there, playing ball. Jesse had given me my first kiss just 2 days before on that very basketball court. I should have been ecstatic with anticipation at the sight of him. I pulled the covers over my head tighter. As the day wore on, my mother came in looking for me. I pled illness and retreated even further. It was months before I began to feel normal again, and that only with the help of Regina's mother, who brought up the topic periodically, reaffirming my worth and reaffirming her in-laws' error, opening a space for me to process the assault. Not much happened to me physically that day. An uninvited hand on the breast, an unwelcome and intrusive kiss. Physically, it was not the stuff that alters your perceptions of sexual acts. It was not the kind of assault that requires stitches or time for the body to mend. But my world changed. Until that frozen moment, I thought I mattered. I thought men respected women. I was an American. I thought my mind mattered to the men around me. After all, they, males, my father, male religious leaders, were educating me. I thought my character mattered. I was being given a religious education, and I was being churched. I was surrounded by women of piety and faith. My mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, Regina's mother. My grade school teachers were women with a religious vocation who dedicated their lives to their faith, to their God, and to the education of children, even girl children. But Uncle Tony, and many of the boys and men who followed, most of whom played by the rules and at least sought to date me before they sought to touch me, changed that perception. Regina's uncle was merely the start of a parade. From that day forward, I began to feel not respected like a person, but disrespected like a random body. I began to notice what sociologists call the male gaze, the sense and reality of being scanned by each male I passed for the acceptability or unacceptability, for the sexiness or lack thereof of my body, of being primarily a body. I began to recognize that in many of their eyes, I was merely a walking vehicle for a pair of breasts to which they often talked when addressing me instead of needing my eyes, and an available vagina. Breasts which even a random man might walk up to and without an invitation reach out and touch, like the guy whose hand I had to knock off as I descended a subway stair while he ascended the other side. Regina's Uncle Tony began my sense of betrayal. The world I had been sheltered in those first 12 years was a fairy tale of my mother's careful construction. She never warned me, but she kept me safe as long as she could. And not warning me was, for her, a part of keeping me safe, of not letting me know there was a world out there that would treat me poorly. But once I, as a girl, was out beyond her view, the fact that there were perpetrators in the world came home to roost.